shrimp. She said we had salad one day and I was able to eat that and she was so happy about that. But she said there's not much of a variety for people like me to be able to choose from without people looking at me and like, why are you not eating the food? And then I feel some type of way. So I have Mrs. Michaels here on the show, not to talk about the school system, but the ideas that might be able to help the school systems. And hopefully, if there's anyone from the school system that is listening, I mean, it doesn't hurt to give an idea. So I'm asking that Mrs. Michael just introduce herself and let you guys know what her credentials are. She also has a magazine that is out, Eyebronze. So I definitely want her to talk about that as well. I'm going to give it up to her for right now. All right, Miss Michaels?
Well, thank you for the introduction. It is a pleasure to see all of you again and to speak about something that is very dear to my heart. I have been in education in different ways for about 33 years. So I've done homeschooling, I've done private schools, I've worked overseas in international schools, and I'm currently back in the United States. And one of my goals or passions has been to, help students with how they eat. And as a matter of fact, as you're speaking of that, I just finished speaking to my administration about some behavioral problems that I'm having just before lunchtime. And I believe that they are directly correlated to the students being hungry. And so I was told it is an unfortunate case that no one can fund me to have food every day before lunch. And I would just like to have snacks for, berries, things that help with the brain food. The brain is an organ, and right before lunch, the kids are exhausted. Most of us as adults would not sit still every single day to hear someone talk to us for 8 periods, 7 periods, which is a consistent 8 hours a day. And so they've already gone 4 hours just sitting, listening to people give them information. And their brain is what we're building. And so why are we not feeding the brain? So one of the ideas, I can just throw that out there, I don't know. Someone came to me and said, do you think that the school would let me put a vending machine in the schools? Well, there are vending machines for teachers. And I said, ideally, we should have vending machines that are health-based, have very helpful foods. And students can have 2 snacks a day, and they're prepaid. So students could use their food card, or we could even use a QR code where students would have access to snacks, 2 drinks, 2 snacks a day, and they could just get those snacks when they're hungry. And teachers could have, correlating to the snacks that are in there, students who are allergic to those foods. So when a child walks through the door with that food, the alert would go off that there's someone in the class who's allergic to that food. So the child could eat on the other side. They could have an eating area. But it would just, the teachers would be aware that someone has food and someone else in the classroom is allergic to it. And the child who's allergic would be aware too, so that they don't, accidentally walk up to someone who might be eating peanut butter and they're allergic to peanuts. So there are ways with the advanced technology, and my specialty is technology and education. So there are ways that we should be able to feed our kids and cut down on some of these behavioral problems, increase their memory, and increase their performance.
I am so excited. As I told you in the beginning, she is an plethora, like an encyclopedia. And her ideas, I'm like, I cannot wait to our second segment so we can just get into those ideas. As you can hear, some of the ideas that she has brought forth already, it makes sense. But I definitely want to talk about those vending machines, because I did do it back to school night with my daughter, and I'm looking at the vending machines and I'm like,
wow.
Face.
Okay. In college, right? Or
no, not in college. This was high school. But before we get into all of that, we're going to talk about that in ways to where we can help our children. But next, I want to introduce you to my BB. I call him BB because he is my big brother of fitness. He really is. This is Chauncey Whitehead. He is Chauncey the trainer. He is my trainer and everyone else's trainer, okay? The trainer Whitehead. Chauncey is here, and we both are, and all of us, we're going to talk about prostate cancer. And the awareness, bringing some type of awareness. None of us are specialized in prostate cancer. Me, I just screen. If I see a PSA that's elevated, then I send them to a urologist. So, as a disclaimer, there is no one here that is experienced in prostate cancer. I'm just a nurse practitioner that screens. I know the symptoms and I know the stages and I know the procedures to surgeries. But when it comes to the actual prostate cancer and treatment, I am not that doctor. So I want to introduce you to Chauncey Whitehead. Why? Because he has not been diagnosed with prostate cancer, but he has something that was equally as scary. His PSA levels, they elevated. So,
Okay.
which kind of like brought about alertness to him, which kind of like brought about, oh God, what's going to happen? I mean, we're going to let him talk about all those experiences that he's had. I mean, it was a roller coaster, emotional roller coaster. You don't know what is going on. So I definitely would love for Chauncey Whitehead just to introduce himself and tell you guys about his credentials. And we're going to start the show off with him talking about prostate cancer. Okay, baby, I'm going to let you take the mic.
Well, good evening, everyone. And it's always a pleasure to be here on the Victory Radio Show, podcast, Facebook Live.
We'll take radio show. We'll take that. We'll take it.
Victory Talk. You know what I'm
claiming it. Watch out, Philip.
You know, but it's always a pleasure. And as Shay stated her credentials, I'm a fitness professional, been in the Baltimore area for 20 years. And right now, September is very important to me and should be important to most men because it's prostate cancer awareness. And as Shay had stated with the disclaimer, I am not a prostate cancer awareness specialist, but what I am is a prostate cancer awareness fellowship person, human being that wants to spread the word to men and women that September is prostate cancer awareness. And for all men, you should go out, try to get your checkups yearly. And if you're a man of a certain age, your prostate, your PSA, and your colonoscopy. As Shay said, I went on a roller coaster ride over the last 18 to 24 months. I have a family history of prostate cancer, and one of the early detection ways is your PSA. But before that happens, typically, you should have a routine physical health examinations. That is how I was referred to a urologist and found out that my PSA had been elevated. So the examinations, the yearly examinations are what I try to stress. It's difficult because a lot of men don't want to have this conversation, but this conversation is a life-saving and a lifestyle type of conversation that we all need to have. And like I said, I'm just one person, but if I can spread the awareness, and as Shay said, we send them and we refer them to the specialists, we all can fight prostate cancer together.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So as we're going through this segment, I want the viewers definitely to ask questions, okay? One question that I do have for Chauncey, tell us about the emotional roller coaster that you went on.
The emotional roller coaster is one of the most difficult things to talk about because as a man, I know my experience when I went to get my examination, and I was told that your PSA is elevated, your numbers are high. Within me, I didn't know how to process it. I said, do I talk to someone about it or do I hold it in? Because I didn't want to be putting off a false alarm, having people concerned, and myself, because I don't have prostate cancer or I haven't been staged. So keeping that information in and waiting for the second appointment to see a urologist kind of made me frustrated inside. The waiting game was very difficult because I wanted to talk, but then I didn't know who to talk to, and I didn't want to alarm anyone, and I didn't want to share or either have people concerned, which is the wrong thing. So I suffered in silence. So the roller coaster ride could be a 4 weeks, 6 weeks, or depending upon when you get that appointment with your urologist that you have to go through. And one of the things I really want to stress to men, you do not have to suffer in silence and suffer alone. It's good to talk to someone. So I did that magical thing I Googled. I Googled what were the psychological effects of men that are in that waiting stage before they go to your urologist and just find out exactly what was going on. And one of the answers that came up is it could be just as devastating as being told that you do have prostate cancer because of the waiting game. You don't know, what are you gonna do? Well, maybe I don't want to go back. If I don't have any problems, any issues, then you know what? I'm just gonna go keep going until something happens. But I wanted to make sure that I follow through with my appointments, and I'm happy to say at this day my numbers are normal, and I'm constantly making sure that every year I get my PSA check. Because remember, I have a family history of prostate cancer. So it's very, very important that you get early detection and get your yearly checkups.
So, Chauncey, let me ask you this. What typically is the age that men should, be taking notice and getting yearly checkups? Is there a specific age, or is it like based on, family history, background? How did you know? Do they just automatically just check it when they go to the doctors? Do you have to ask for it?
See, that's such a good question because this is where it gets interesting. Every year for the past 20 years, I make sure that I get an annual checkup every June. So to back that up, I posted the other day that men around the age of 25 should start making sure they get their annual physical health assessment every year. So by the time, Becky, they get to 40 and you start to have those mandatory tests, that you will already be in that habit of getting your health examinations. So when your doctor refers you to, okay, you're at a certain age now, you're 40, 41, 42, you have a family, a history of prostate cancer or maybe colon cancer, then I'm going to refer you out to that specific specialist. The problem that I've been finding with men, if they have not been going to the doctor from the age of maybe around 25, 26, 27, all the way up to 40, because they never had any medical problems, it's difficult to say at 40, without any health issues going on, hey, you need to go get your prostate checked out. So I think one of the keys, and I'm sure Shay can piggyback off it, is young men anywhere between 25 and 30 to start with trying to get an annual fitness health examination. So by the time you get age 40, where some of these because you typically have to get referred out, your question is, you just don't, in my experience, you just don't walk into any doctor in clinic and say, you know what, I want to get a colonoscopy or I want to get my PSA. It's typically a process and a referral. So that's why the yearly health examinations that I've been stressing with men is very important to the overall process in your whole fitness and your health examination.
Chauncey is absolutely correct. I mean, just today in the clinic, I had a young man come in, and I walk into the office and I said, hi. I said, introduce myself, and I knew it was a wellness exam, but I would like to hear them say why they actually came, because they might have something else that's going on. And he's like, well, I really don't know. I just got a message from the clinic saying I needed to be here. Well, it says that you need to get a wellness check, a physical. And he's like, what's that? I'm like, well, it's the same thing like when you were a child and your mother would bring you to the doctor every year. Not only for your vaccinations, but just to make sure we keep you well. That's what a wellness check is, a wellness exam. Our exams are to make sure that we ensure and keep you well. A physical, I like to use the word wellness exam instead of a physical exam, because when you tell them our job is to keep you well, they're like, okay, well, that makes sense. Maybe I should come back next year because I have to make sure I stay well. Yeah. But if I'm going to go get another physical, they love the word wellness exam better than they do love the word physical. So I definitely, I stopped and took that moment to educate, this young man about how important it is to follow up every year. And I said, I hope I see you next year for your wellness exam. He said, you know what, Dr. Brown, I'll be back next year. But to piggyback off for Chauncey and the age limit and stuff like that, we have to talk about those risk factors as well. So as he was mentioning earlier, he has a father that had prostate cancer. And you also have to think about it, even if you don't have a father, if you have a brother that has prostate cancer, you also need to get yourselves checked out if you're over the age of 60. Me personally, for insurance purposes, if I know that you have a family history or if your father or brother has had prostate cancer, I'm not going to wait till you turn 60. I'm going to start screening you at the age of 40 and 45 years of age.
Absolutely.
That's when I'm going to start screening you. And if the insurance has something to say about that, then I'm like, I will just wait to hear what they have to say. But my diagnosis will be family history of prostate cancer. Okay. So again, that is my job to make sure that I keep you well. Something else that I was mentioning to Chauncey, Agent Orange. No one knew that Agent Orange can cause prostate cancer as well. All those toxins that was given in Agent Orange times. African American men, number one on the radar list for prostate cancer. You are definitely at risk. Other chemicals, if you're a painter, that is another risk of prostate cancer. There was another one. If you work in a factory or if you're a farmer, you guys, you deal with chemicals every day. You should be getting yourselves checked.
Absolutely, Shay. And those risk factors that you put out there is one of the reasons why I'm so big on the prostate cancer awareness and wellness checkups and conversation. What I'm trying to do is start the conversation of getting wellness checks. So it becomes such a habit with men, especially black men. Shay, you know the statistics that most black men could have a better outcome with prostate cancer through early detection. Mm-hmm. Early detection goes through early and continuous routine wellness checks. And not being, I understand, because there's a lot of fear about the examination and that type of thing. So some men are like, well, you know what? I don't want to go to the examination because, I heard they're going to violate me, all these different type of things. And that's the conversation that I want to change too, is to have men talk about their examination, have them talk about some of the new technology. If they're not aware of the technology, to try to bring in professionals that know. But it has to start with the conversation. On social media, sadly, I have been the only man that I've seen posting on a regular basis or at any time about prostate cancer awareness month in September. And I don't want to be the only man. I don't want to be the only person. I want us all to take prostate cancer just as serious as September as we will next month when we go into the breast cancer month. Absolutely. And everyone wears pink. Everyone should be wearing blue, men and women.
Absolutely. I completely agree. I'm going to say
that's why we're rocking our blue for you.
About 1 in 6 men in the U.S. will develop prostate cancer. Most of these men are over the age of 60. So when Chauncey talk about, most men don't want to be screened, everything is not, and I'm going to say, a rectal exam. Mm-hmm. Check your blood levels. We check your blood levels. And a lot of men, they're like, well, with your wellness exam, we have to do, check you for prostate cancer. And I'm like smiling, and they're like, why are you smiling, Dr. Brown? I'm like, no. I said, no gloves here. I said, we're just going to just draw blood. And then if your levels are fine, then you're okay. We will not send you anywhere else. He said, okay, fingers crossed. I'm like, all right, the fingers crossed. But definitely want to follow with your PCPs. But I understand we do have some questions. I love questions.
Yeah, so I want to jump over, actually, right before we get to the question, let's talk about warning signs a little bit, because I know that we need to get to Ms. Michael, and we don't want to run out of time. But can we talk about some of the warning signs of prostate cancer? So we know that some of them are frequent urination, painful or burning urination, erectile dysfunction are some of the more common ones. But is there anything else that you want to mention that kind of jumps out that our men should maybe pay special attention to?
Really? I'm sorry.
Severe lower abdominal pain too. Sorry, Shay. Severe lower abdominal pain that lasts for a long time, where a lot of men will self-diagnose and say, oh, it's a hernia, or I just don't feel well. But they need to get that checked out too.
Okay, so I don't want the people to be like, when we say painful urination, what was the other word you used, Kiara?
Painful, burning urination, or frequently urinate.
Painful, burning, and frequent. That's all a UTI. And people might think I just might have a UTI. Okay. Or it could be STD. I mean, young men, or whatever, they could think that it is an STD. I mean, we do have that still streaming around. So with men, you have to think about it. You do have some painful urinations. You do have the frequency, but also you have trouble urinating. Actually, the trouble urinating is actually initiating a stream to pee. Or stop, go, then go, then stop. And you know that you have retention there. That's how you get the belly pain, because the urine sits in your bladder and it's lower pelvic pain. And then you develop a UTI, which it's a bacteria infection. Then you have the abdominal pain. Something else that you do, you dribble when you pee. You don't get it all out. You think that you're really pushing very hard, but it's dribble, dribble, dribble. That's that prostate squeezing the urethra of the penis. That's what that is. Getting up, going to the bathroom at night. That frequency. That's something else that's a red flag. You want to look at all those things, lower back pain, pains in your hips, all these things. You're like, how do those things correlate? Nerves down in those areas. Okay? That's how they correlate together. All right? So, yeah.
Okay, and that's really, wonderful information, because like you both said, sometimes we'll try to self-diagnose things or ignore things and be like, oh, well, it's just a little pain in my side. It's going to go away. It'll be okay. No, maybe the first time it happens, but if it's persistent, right? If it's continuing for multiple days or increasing in severity, we need to get checked out, right? The guys need to get checked out, rather.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But let me just say this. Everybody is individual. Everyone won't have all of these symptoms. Throw them all out there. Okay? Well, Dr. Brown said, check my prostate because my hip hurt. No. These are some of the signs and symptoms that we as healthcare professionals, we get. I get a lot of my information from WebMD, from Hippocrates, from Up to Date. All right? So this is where I'm getting my information from. These are some of the signs and symptoms that men can have. But go ahead.
All right, so we want to get a couple of these questions in really quickly. Miss Victoria, aka Mama Sugar. Hey, Mama Sugar, in the comments. She says, what does PSA stand for, and is it a simple blood test? And then she also wants to know, if a man goes to the doctor for a wellness exam, will they automatically test for prostate cancer? Or is it something that you have to ask for?
If a man is coming to the hospital, if he's coming for a wellness exam and he is over the age of 50 and 60, I will ask, do you want to be screened for prostate cancer? This is nothing that we do automatically. We always ask everyone, do you want to be screened for prostate cancer? And if they say no, then I'm like, okay, we'll just keep it moving. But if they do want to be screened, then we will. But I will go back and tell them, by not being screened, you still don't have to, but I just want to let you know these are things that can happen. If you start experiencing these signs and symptoms, please come back and let us know. We don't want the stages to get too far to where it can't be treated. So we want you to come back and be screened. But yes, those are some of the things that I do. They can, or if they don't want to, we just don't do it.
And Shay, give them the definition of PSA.
It's a blood level that is used to screen for prostate cancer. The PSA basically measures the amount of prostate-specific antigen that is in the blood, and that's like an enzyme. Okay. Now, when someone has a heart attack, we all know what a heart attack is, right? Your heart is so smart. What it does, your heart is having a heart attack, it sets off enzymes called troponins to let you know that there's an irregularity going on with the heart. And it's only for the heart. The PSA sends off an enzyme from the prostate, and it shoots it out into the blood to say, hey, look, there's something going wrong with this prostate. Check it out. The body is just such an intelligent thing. It really is. God made it so perfect, didn't he?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And to piggyback off of that question from someone in the audience, is one of the reasons why I'm so pushing yearly wellness checks, because if you get in the habit, men, if you get in the habit before you start not feeling well of getting your annual exams, when you reach that age of 40, and you may have the family history, and you come across a health practitioner like Dr. Brown that wants to, you know what, would you like to have this test? The frequency of going to the doctor yearly makes it a lot easier. I know on my end as a man to say yes to these tests. But if the process is foreign to most men, when they go in, if they go in feeling good and they go through the exam, they're not coming back. I know my species. I talk to men. I'm not going in until it's falling off. I'm just keeping it real. I'm not going to get checked until I can't cough no more. If we get in the habit of stressing, it's important to get the yearly exam. So when you get to a question like you just asked, when is the age? Men can rattle that off. Well, you know, I'm going to turn 40. And when I was 39, my doctor had already told me, be prepared for this exam coming up. So it doesn't become so scary and so new to you. But if you haven't been to the doctor and you were 25 and now you're 40, but you never had anything wrong, it is like pulling teeth to try to get a 40-year-old man to go to the doctor if there's nothing wrong with him. I deal with this all the time. So we just want to make it a habit.
And can I just say as well, when we measure the protein, well, not the protein, the PSA levels in the blood, we look at a certain level to let us know if there's any type of cancerous or non-cancerous enzymes or protein that is shot off from the prostate gland, okay? And we want that number to be less than 4.0, okay? So if anyone is ever wondering what's a good level, it has to be below 4.0. If it's above 4.0, it can be 4.5 for all I care. I'm sending you straight to a urologist.
Yes.
So they can keep doing lab work on lab work. It could be cancerous and it could be non-cancerous. We don't know. So we send you to the specialist. That's why you go to a urologist.
Now, one of the things that Dr. Brown just said, and I want to tell men to be patient as I was, is that sometimes, Shay, when you do that referral, that may not be tomorrow. That might be 4 weeks from now. That may be whenever you need to get it, depending upon what kind of health facility. So you might need to work on being patient and wait patiently. Now, that's the waiting game, though, because once Dr. Brown referred you and you may not be able to get in the next day, you still need to be patient and follow through. One of the problems with men on a lot of exams is we don't want to follow through. Once Dr. Brown has given me that referral, and it's not tomorrow, it's on the 15th, but I got to work. You know what? I may not show up. I don't see Dr. Brown again until 6 months. So then I see Dr. Brown. She asked me, did I go get checked? And I didn't get checked, and we start the process. But what Dr. Brown is trying to tell me is that every month is critical. You were at a 4.5. If you wait until you see me next March, you might be at a 5 or 6 or 7. You might be staged. So it's important we stress the men, when you get that referral, follow through. If you need someone to talk to, reach out to somebody and talk to them. Well, you know what? I may not be able to do it for 3 weeks. I'm an emotional wreck. Hey, can you walk with me? Can you talk with me? Can you help me through the waiting game? That's what I know as a man. The waiting game is what usually prevents men from following through. They're like, look, I'm not going to wait. I'm going to keep it to myself until it falls off. That's the wrong thing to do.
Absolutely.
So let me jump in there real quick before we change gears and go up the street to Desiree about childhood obesity. One of the points that I did come across is that prostate cancer is the most common non-skin cancer in men in the U.S. and the fourth most common tumor diagnosed worldwide. In the United States, 1 in 8 men will be diagnosed with prostate cancer in his lifetime. And I think that that's, really, important to put out there, because it kind of goes in conjunction with what you were just saying, Chauncey, about how men, they're not really pushing, for the importance of it, in their own health. How the awareness is not pushed out there. And I allow me to apologize on behalf of Victory Talk, because we haven't done enough this year to push prostate cancer. Like, we will do in October, breast cancer. Everybody gets on top of breast cancer, but not everybody, gets on top of prostate cancer. And it is affecting our men. Listen, 1 in 8, that's a lot. That's a lot.
The overall family too. If the man is removed, it's effective. So we
You
should
are right.
be awareness.
Yes.
Just like men wear pink, women need to wear blue.
Yes.
And we all need to wear blue. We need to have this conversation so we can move right into October.
I wholeheartedly agree. Yes. And before we go over to childhood obesity, Chauncey, will you take a moment and to share about the walk this Saturday?
Tomorrow morning, Saturday, at Druid Hill Park, swimming pool, right by the swimming pool in the tennis court area, we'll be having our monthly community walk with Mother Ernestine Shepherd. And this month, this walk, we're going to be walking for prostate cancer awareness. We're asking the walkers to wear blue. We'll have some blue ribbons out there. There'll be a few people that they may be able to talk to if they need some information to be referred to a clinic or something like that. But we just want to walk and have a conversation and just try to get men to get their wellness examinations. And if they're at a certain age, encourage them to get their prostate examination and a colonoscopy.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you, Brother Chauncey. Thank you so much. All right, Shay, let's talk about childhood obesity.
All right. Excellent. Thank you again, BB. I appreciate you. All right. So we all know that childhood obesity has been one of the biggest issues that we are faced with today in the United States. Back in 1971, the World Health Organization did a study, and it said that children will be I can't remember exactly, but they gave a number saying that at least 16% of children will be even more obese by, I think it was 2020. I think the study had said to me. I'm back in school to get my doctor's degree, and everything that I'm doing now is on obesity, because by the time I'm done with my doctorates, every paper I write is about obesity. So I make it easy for myself because it's something I'm very passionate about. And this week, all of my papers have been about childhood obesity. And the studies that I have been reading upon is very, very alarming. A 12-year-old, diabetic, not pre-diabetes, diabetic, metformin, medication.
Wow.
Okay,
Wow.
that's hurtful. That our children are getting grown people illnesses and diseases before they even turn 18. How are we failing our children is the question. How are we failing our children? I am not a pediatrician, but I am a family nurse practitioner, and I study children as well. So one of my studies, I am able to see children. So I guess you could call me a little bit of a specialist. So when parents bring their children in to see me for their wellness exams, they will always say, Dr. Brown, I'm glad that I brought Lil Ray in because I want to talk to you about his weight. I said, excellent. I want to talk to you too about his weight, because you will know better than I would about his weight. Of course, we're going to do all the lab work, but it's the only thing that's going to prove is that he's what we call hyperinsulinemia. You have high insulin levels. That means that your pancreas is working overtime for all this excess food that you have.
Mm-hmm.
So I cannot say that it's the whole school system. It could be poor access to food. It could be single parents, mom out there working, nobody's at the house with the kids, and the only thing they have is oodles and noodles, ring dings and ding dongs, Doritos, sodas, juice boxes, or the corner store. You know how they always have those little pieces at the corner store, where they go down and get the pizza at the corner store because it's easy for them. And then when they go to school, the vending machine.
Yeah.
Touch on that one. Took my daughter to school for back to school. And of course, you guys know I'm nosy. I wanted to see what they had in the vending machines. I didn't want anything. I just wanted to see. There was not one healthy thing in there.
Wow.
And what is that? Good Humor ice cream was all around the school. Good Humor ice cream.
Giving them more sugar.
Another study I read upon. And it's not good to talk about these things, but like I said in my last episode of Obesity, a Disease or a Choice, you have to hit this straight on. We cannot play with this because this is our children that we're talking about here. We as adults, we have to figure out how can we fix this epidemic. It's not a pandemic, it is an epidemic. How can we fix this? That's why I have Desiree Michaels on the show today, to maybe give us some insight about things that we can do as parents, as teachers, as a school system. What ideas? Is she an expert in this? No, but she has some very great ideas. And I'm quite sure that you do too. But these ideas, I think, would be perfect in our school system. Healthier snacks, healthier vending machines. Take the Good Humor out. Okay, and if you do leave it in there, get what are those ice creams that's 100% fruit? Put something like that in there. Our kids, they're struggling. 12 years old. I didn't know what to do. Geez, lifestyle changes. Desiree, you want to comment on that?
Well, yes, thank you. So one of the things which we all are aware of is that a lot of the activities that utilize the sugar, the glucose in the brain, and you can touch on this more because, as you said, I'm not a doctor, but some of my research as well. So my first master's degree touched on how the brain burns the synapses, burn that glucose. And what is happening is that we have a very sedentary lifestyle, and we're keeping our kids, again, sitting in seats for longer periods of time. We've taken away the PE. I mean, they're still having PE, but we've taken away some of the PE activities. We've taken away, in middle school, the kids do not have recess like they do in elementary school. We've taken away a lot of the movement time. They're only having 5 minutes to go from one class to the other, and they're sitting again. And they are supposed to stay in their seats unless they have to get up to go to the restroom. So my research looked at my first master's degree. I did it on teaching techniques. And I looked at how the synapses are utilizing sugar to, help the brain work. And so what I focused on was rapid cognition and the need to burn more sugar. And though I was not able to prove it in my first master's degree in 2007, I did want to do further research and I actually sought research funding and was unable to get it. But I sought to find out if there was a direct correlation between diabetes type 2 and the increase and our kids sitting and not learning as rapidly. So the pace at which we're delivering information isn't burning enough sugar for the time that they're sitting. So if we delivered information a lot more quickly, which we now have the technology to do, again, going back to technology, we have the ability to deliver information in seconds instead of having students sit for hours and hours to learn the same information that they can get at their fingertips through videos, through informative teaching from even universities. And they could then participate more so in project-based learning so that the school system is designed to give the students the information, have them work on projects so that they're out of their seats, they're moving, they're talking, they're burning that glucose. And going back to the vending machines, who says the vending machine has to be in the hallway? Why can't there be small vending machines in each classroom? Mm-hmm. And because I once served on a county commission where we funded schools and we funded programs where students were able to get food. So it was the Family and Children's Trust Commission in Northern California. And what we made sure of is that students did not go to school hungry. But what happens after they're in school? And that's what concerns me. We have, again, these behavioral problems, which I see a direct correlation to these students being hungry and some of the illnesses that you're talking about. So if we could get these small vending machines into a classroom, again, having them prepaid, there are all types of grants. If you just Google nutrition, food and nutrition programs and grants, depending on your state, you can come up with a lot of grants and a lot of funding that is there for these types of programs. So if you were to contract with a school and say, okay, I'm going to provide these type of healthy snacks and have a little just refrigerator, you know, those refrigerators that have snacks in them, they're not the huge vending machines, but it's prepaid because you've received a grant. And so you're paid up front, you don't lose money. And again, the kids could just utilize their cards. And we know that there's a direct correlation between water, drinking, and how rapidly the brain processes information. So there's a direct correlation between the liquids that they're getting as well. Maybe we're not hydrating them enough. And so there's a whole process of not taking care of the brain that happens when kids go to school, which is an oxymoron. We're there to develop their minds. And we're giving them the information, but we're not giving them the nutrition and the micronutrients that they need while learning.
You brought up a lot of interesting points. And one, I have a question. This is 2022. Back in the 1950s, 60s, and 70s, another study showed that out of maybe 20 kids, there might have been only one child in the group that was overweight. Think about it. Am I lying? You guys know who that kid is because I'm thinking about the one that I grew up with. There was always that one child that was overweight. Okay? And we had to sit in class and listen to our studies, not move. We didn't have all this extra technology that they have for these kids today. So what is the difference in between the way we were educated, because we had to sit in there and we better not move, barely could even go to the bathroom. And
I think
what's the difference between us and the kids today? Why is it still an obesity epidemic?
We also had at that time, I don't know if you had, it depended on the school system, of course, but there were other things like band that were just offered. The activities that were offered in the recess, again, that was offered, and the amount of sugar. So compare a cupcake from, as you were talking about, let's say 1970, a cupcake and the amount of frosting on the top of the cupcake then, and the amount of frosting on the top of the cupcake now. So the amount of sugar that's being absorbed and the lack of exercise that goes along with that increase in sugar intake is not, the correlation is not there. So the sugar intake is rising, the sedentariness is rising, and so you're dealing with these excess weight problems. And though I could not prove it, a lot of the research that has come out now is pointing in the direction that I did find in 2007, that this also impacts memory. So what do you do in school? You're teaching the children to recall. You want them to recall information to pass an exam. Well, if sugar creates a blockage or increases mucus, which impacts memory, why then, again, are we increasing the amount of sugar that we're putting in children's system? And then we see these behavioral problems. So there are, I believe, immediate solutions that we could do. And it just requires the funding and the directive from, these school boards to allow particular things to happen. And the community collaboration is key. It's very key to
One
these
of the
changes.
we have a couple comments, and I want to get them in. Miss Victoria, Mama Sugar said, how can we educate our children and keep them on a healthy path when unhealthy eating is everywhere? We have to start with parent education first. And I agree with that. I wholeheartedly agree with that, because I believe that a lot of it starts at home. A lot of it starts at home. Good, healthy eating habits start in your own home. And unfortunately, it's just like anything else. The school is being left to teach our children good, healthy eating, good manners, how to behave. When we as parents, that foundation should be being set in the household. So I think it's a lot, it would be helpful if, the parents can be better educated. I think another part of that issue is that we are living in a microwave society. Everybody wants things quick, fast, and in a hurry. Am I right? Back when we were growing up, did your mama cook? Karen said it.
I'll piggyback on that, what you're saying. So the education aspect, and what I looked at is the advertisers. So the advertisements have influenced, and they know this. I mean, their advertisements sit in your amygdala. They sit in your memory. And so when you think of something to eat, and when parents think of something to eat, depending on how much those advertisements have influenced their behavior, that's exactly what they're going to give their children. So to educate them, to counter-educate them, is actually just creating advertising that's countering the advertisers that are out there, and putting those advertisements in front of students and children when they're looking at television. You could turn on the television now, and what do we see? We see cheese, cheese, cheese. Those programs, those commercials are actually funded by the USDA many times to get milk and dairy products out there. So there's a lot of grants, if you will. They're not necessarily grants, but there's a lot of funding that goes towards private sector businesses to push certain foods. So I think the advertising and those 30 seconds, they're down to 5 seconds now. They have done studies that show that people pay attention to commercials in 1.5 seconds. And so they're getting into your amygdala, and I keep mentioning the amygdala. This is where a lot of your long-term memory is stored from emotional trauma or positive emotional things, the smell of food, things that give you good memory. It's in the amygdala. And that's where advertisers target. And that's why it's so hard to even get parents to change their lifestyle eating habits. So trying to educate kids in school, I think it's not so much as education, it's simply changing what's being offered and countering what's being pumped into their memory banks for food.
And on that note, I was going to ask Desiree, do you think that part of the problem is the cost? Because I'm just wondering why, as far as we've come, not only I've been seeing on the news here lately, are the food that they are serving, but the quality of the food that they're serving outdated and chunky milk and moldy bread sandwiches and all of these, kids are video recording and uploading this stuff to social media and sending it to the news and stuff like that. So I'm just trying to figure out how truly difficult would it be to, I'm not saying cut everything out. I know that it's faster to make a pizza or a hot dog than, have salad and fresh fruits and vegetables available for the kids. But I just can't connect the dots and figure out why the schools haven't tried to implement at least baby steps, a little bit of healthier substitutions.
Right. Well, Michelle Obama did a big movement to change the way students ate in schools. And she went up directly against corporations, and those corporations have lobbyists. And so there are very key, if you Google the contractors who get these food contracts within states, some of the corporations are not even stateside. They're based in France, and they're based in many of the countries around the world. So they're also American, but you have to follow the money, and almost all of them have lobbyists in Washington. So it's not just as simple as me and you sitting here saying, oh, why does this happen? Mm-hmm. There's a whole system that's in place to make it happen. So once that's addressed, then obviously you'd see changes. But as long as corporations are making money, they're going to make sure they secure their interests. And so that's what we're basically going up against. It's not that individual families cook for these schools. These are huge corporations that get contracts. They're, because schools are government-based, local government, they're getting government contracts. And that's what I'm saying. If small people can break in and get some of those grants and have little, vending machines in those classrooms, that change starts to happen. And if you start making commercials, for instance, your food line, Shay, you have a whole food line. If you could make commercials and somehow get that in front of people at critical times when they're looking at something, even a church, when people are at church, it sounds counterproductive, but our families are in trouble. And so if at church, when they're showing things up on the screen, you could shoot a commercial of health food, 30 seconds, 5 seconds, because the attention span has gone down since, I believe the study was done in 2016 or 2018 by Microsoft, and they said the attention span had gone down to 7 seconds then. And again, we're up to about 1.5 seconds that people look for information. So you could put a quick commercial in churches that deals with food, because it's your health, and your health deals directly with your spirituality. But that's another topic. But, we have to find a way to circumvent what advertisers are doing. They have studied child psychology, the same psychologists that teachers study. Advertisers study those psychologists to figure out how to get information into the minds of children. And so we're battling a whole system. And you asked, about the expense, the price, of course it is. It's an irony that everyone laughed at farmers. And, if your dad's a farmer or your mom's a farmer, you were laughed at. But that was just to get people away from the farms again. And it goes back to the corporations who now own a lot of the foods that we eat.
I wonder sorry, Desiree. I wonder how much of it is cultural. How much of it is based on location, where you live? In some of these school systems, inner city, I think that their meals, from my understanding and some things that we see, their meals are different. Different countries, their meals are different. Their school lunches, overall are different than what, are here in the United States. I think that, again, I agree with you, Desiree, that, something needs to be done, and we need to find ways to get in front of, those individuals that have the ability to make the change. And if we can't get in front of them to, to make the change for us, we've got to go grassroots and start finding out how we can make the change for our children ourselves.
Right. And and that's funny you were saying that, because that's what I was just going to say, that I did a program just before leaving Greece in 2013, and it was agroengineering. And I had guest speakers there's a lady from India, and she's gone around to tell people to save seeds. She does presentations. And then Majora Carter, she is very famous for having encouraged people to start using rooftops in the inner cities as your gardening space, so that you can utilize all the space, the backyard gardens that we used to have in the inner cities. All of that is still grass, capable of growing vegetables, fruits, and where the grass is, we could turn that into sort of farming land. And Detroit is doing a huge movement to get this grass that's just in inner cities, turning it over to farmland. And there are some places where I believe, and I don't want to quote it, but I think it's about $11 for, some of the plots that are there. It's a very minute amount of money, and people are starting to buy up the plots and starting to feed their communities. So like you said, that grassroots movement is happening. And I would encourage your listeners to look up Majora Carter, to look up county programs for food and nutrition, and to see what grants are out there, because they probably can do small things. They could do small activities and fund one classroom for even a semester, could change the way, what you're saying, that influence that we need to happen. The only reason the schools are left with this burden is because, and I would say teachers kind of were left with this burden, like you said, with everything, is because that's the one commonality that we all sort of share throughout the nation. You know, of the millions of children who go to school every day, that's the one place where we know we have a captive audience.
You just said, look, you encouraged our listeners to look up who now?
Majora Carter.
Can you spell her name?
And Majora, it's like major.
Majora.
Jora.
Carter.
Yes, Carter.
Okay.
Yes.
African American woman.
Yes. And
Thank
she's
you.
out of Brooklyn. Yes. Yes. And the lady, I can find that information for you. Her name slips my mind. She's from India. And she's very prominent throughout the world, and she travels and tells people how to save seeds. Because, of course, you know, corporations have decided to patent seeds, and they try to sue people who try to grow their own vegetables and fruits that are not bought from them. Yes, that's a whole nother show. Yes. So the food problem in getting our students to eat, it's egregious that, you know, corporations have realized that they have a captive audience of students, and so that they can make money off of the government programs and feed our children things that are not good for them. So I think it's critical, and I thank you, you know, ladies, for having this program and talking about these issues, because the more they're spoken about, the more people will become educated and try different venues and ideas, as you said, you know, Shay, different ideas to feed their own children while they're away from home.
Absolutely. And what a wonderful way to close that. I mean, that was just so perfect. I couldn't have done it any better. So y'all heard it here. We need to really, and this is not going to be the last conversation that, you know, we have about either of these topics. This is really, truly important stuff, you guys. We talk about men's fitness. We talk about women's fitness. We talk about children's health and fitness. And we have to make sure that, you know, we take care of our kids. We have to take care of our babies. We have to make sure that they're okay, you know, because they are the future, you know, they're up next. And so we know that if we develop healthy habits in them now, then we can break that chain, you know, of them. In turn, their children will eat better, and their children will eat better. And then, you know, maybe we'll all start to live a little bit longer again, you know? So,
well, if you can live long, it's your quality of life that's going to be in question.
Yeah.
That part. Absolutely.
We keep you guys alive for a long time. Absolutely.
I know that's right. Every time I go to the pharmacy now, the line is wrapped around the building twice.
Yep, medications, mechanical hearts, taking other people's organs, putting it in your body. I mean, cutting your legs off because you had diabetes and you don't want to get gangrene. I mean, putting you in nursing homes. I mean, we can keep you alive. But your quality of life, that's the question.
Absolutely. All right, y'all. So we just want to say, before we wrap up and go, we just want to say thank you again to you both. Thank you, Chauncey, for educating us, helping us to spread awareness about prostate cancer. We hope that you all will join them in their walk tomorrow. And don't only show up tomorrow, keep showing up. They're on social media, Facebook, they're all over the place. You're going to get that information some kind of way. And if you show up tomorrow, you'll be able to, I'm sure, have some one-on-one conversations and get, you know, if you're interested in personal training, if you're interested in getting on a nutrition plan. Shay is the person to see for the soups and juices and good food and all that stuff. All right, y'all, because we about to go into hibernation season, so we want to make sure that we're eating healthy, putting good stuff into our bodies,
Yes.
okay? And Desiree, thank you so much. It was so wonderful talking with you again and talking, to you on a different topic, something that is so, so, so important. So thank you both for...
Thank you.
And
I did find the lady's name, Vandana Shiva. So I did put that in the chat.
Thank
Vandana, her name is Vandana Shiva. And she goes around the world talking about, people saving their seeds and to continue growing traditional vegetables, fruits, and grains.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. So we will make sure that we type that in the chat. All right, so before we wrap up really quickly, we just want to remind everybody that, we have a lot happening in the month of September, specifically on tomorrow. We have our Love the Hopeful tomorrow at 8 a.m. is set up. The line opens up at 9 a.m. 421 Fallsway under the bridge. It's not too late to show up with some donations. It's not too late to volunteer. So we would love to have you and see you as we continue to serve the hopeful community. VLF will also be at Essex Day on Eastern Boulevard in Essex, Maryland, starting set up at 8 a.m. there. And I believe Essex Day is running from somewhere around 10 to 6.
Yes.
And last but not least, Minister Michon Noble will be performing at 3 p.m. on the gospel stage at the African American Heritage Festival. So the gospel stage, the festival itself is going to be in Towson, Maryland. So if you need any of that information, message one of us. We'll get it out to you. It's all over our social media, so it's not hard to find. And so we look forward to seeing everybody on tomorrow. And don't forget, there's enough time in the day. Show up, men, young men, every man that you know. Make sure that you let everybody know about Chauncey and Mama Ernestine's walk on tomorrow, okay? So
and where's that at once again? Where's that at once again?
Yes, location for the walk.
Yes.
Oh, it's at the Druid Hill Park. We will be by the tennis court and the basketball court. We start at 7:30.
7:30. There you go. So look, 7:30. Go get your walk on, get your exercise in first. Go show up to volunteer. Stop by Essex Day, and then shoot on over to Towson for the festival. Boom, there you go. Everything all in a row. We got your day lined up for you. So thank you again to our guests. Thank you to our viewers for tuning in to Victory Talk for our Fit for Life edition. We will see you all on next Friday at 7 p.m. Same time, same place. And until then, everybody be well and be safe. Good night.
Good night.